Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of Risen. I'm very excited that you are all here today. My name is Kathy. If you are new here on this podcast, I discuss everything art related, such as design, acting, and filmmaking. If you don't follow me already, I would really appreciate you following on Spotify. And if you're watching the podcast on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any future episodes. Today, I'm very excited to have my very first guest on the show, actually. His name is Brian McDonald. He is a New England based actor. I've actually worked with him on a film project before, and we've been in communication ever since. So I'm very excited to have him on board for the episode. How are you, Brian?
I'm very good. How are you?
Doing well, doing well.
And I didn't realize I was the first guest. I didn't know
You
that.
are the first guest.
Oh,
Yes, you're
cool.
you're special. You're special, Brian.
What an honor. I'm honored.
Yeah. For sure. So, Brian, I'd love to get a better understanding on, your acting journey, projects you've been in, really anything you want to share with us. And I'd also love to know, towards the end of our conversation, what advice you have for fellow actors who are starting to think about making acting a full-time career or are starting to think about making acting more of a serious component in their life and, what you would advise them to do if, let's say, they don't have any representation or the support that they need. But we'll get to that later. First off, I'd like to know how you got started in acting. What was that like for you? Was it something that you've had a passion for since you were really, really little, or was it something that kind of developed over time? Can you walk us through that?
Certainly, yeah. So I definitely loved movies and everything as a child, but I was very shy, painfully shy. I would do school plays, but I would be a character with no lines. You know what I mean, kind of thing. And I think when I got into college, I went to college in California at Loyola Marymount, which is in LA.
Hmm.
I was a transfer, so I had some electives to take, and I started taking acting classes just for fun. And I really, really connected to it then. That was 2008, 2009, 2010, around those years. But then I just graduated with a business degree and eventually moved back to Boston and got an office job and kind of forgot about it. And I don't know, the itch was there and I wasn't really loving my career. And then in the late 2010s, it's 2018, 2017, I left my job. I went into like waiting tables and I started taking acting classes. So that was, and since then it's become progressively from like a hobby to a part-time job to at times a full-time job. And then,
Hmm.
and now I'm just in the hustle.
Nice. So are you acting full time right now, or do you have like a side hustle and acting? Like what's that been like?
There's always been like some side hustle, and like right now I'm probably gonna move the side hustle to more of a serious job
Hmm.
because work's been light with the double strikes and all that. But yeah, like in the past couple years I got a couple of gigs where I was able to support myself mostly from acting. I was really lucky. um but now it's, and I would do things like DoorDash, Lyft, Amazon, those kind of third party apps to just have flexibility.
Hmm.
um and that was great, and I was able to get in a lot of classes and auditioning and things like that, indie films. But it's been slow, so I might have to go back to another thing, but it's so I guess part-time, bordering on full-time actor.
Yeah, but I mean, you're still doing what you love, which is great, regardless
Yeah,
of that.
exactly.
You're able to manage. That's awesome. So you mentioned it kind of acting started to be this elective that you took, and then it kind of developed over time in terms of the craft. What would you say that first experience on a film set or theater? I'm assuming it was more like a film set that you were on, like the very first time. Like, what was that like for you? How did that feel being on
um
set for the first time?
yeah, well, the first thing I did in college, I performed a scene from the play True West on stage, and that was the first time I was like, oh, I love this. I get it. I get how this is
Hmm.
um attractive, how it's addictive to some people. And then, but when I first got back into it here, it's really focused on film and television, the classes I was taking.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I think I think the first time on a movie set, I was just an extra, but it just seemed like I was sucked into my TV and it was like a dream world, and I never wanted to leave. It was the show City on a Hill. I wasn't even seen in the shot, but just
Mhm.
being there,
Yeah.
yeah, was excited. And then obviously it progresses from there.
Right. That's awesome. So I'd love to know what kind of projects I guess you're most proud of. I do want to touch upon two projects that you've done recently that I've become aware of through socials and stuff like that. And let me know if you're not allowed to talk about these
Oh
or
no,
go into depth. But the Super Bowl, the 2023 Super Bowl, Sam Adams commercial, that was hilarious. I saw that a couple of times, and I don't know if I'm assuming everyone who got the part had an authentic Boston accent, right? Or were there people who kind of put the accent on the spot? Like, I guess what was that auditioning process for that commercial? What did that feel like?
yeah, so they've been running this Your Cousin from Boston campaign since like 2019, 2020. And
Mhm.
it's this guy, Greg, I can't think of his last name right now. Greg, I don't want to say the wrong thing. And he lives in LA, but he's from Amesbury, Massachusetts originally.
Mhm.
But he doesn't naturally speak in the accent. So he's putting it on kind of similar to how I do it. And in the commercials, they ask people who can do the accent. Um, I would say out of the batch, the most authentic accent was Lenny Clark, who was the guy that bumped into him in the bar. I think
Mhm.
he's the only Rick guy that has it all the time. But it was interesting the audition because they're you didn't really understand what was going on. Like I'm seeing a Yankees fan, we look at each other angrily and then hug. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what
The
is this?
hug was sorry, the hug was interesting though, because it felt like you guys are supposed to be not opposed to each other, but it seemed like something out of the ordinary. To like to be at a stadium and just like hug each
Yeah,
other and like welcome each other even though you're on opposing teams. Because I think your one of your lines was, "We love New York is here," or something like that, right?
yeah, that was
That
good. That was a good exit too.
yeah, thank you.
It was yeah. So I mean, the director, this guy Aaron Staller, he specializes in like Super Bowl commercials. He did two
Okay.
last year. He did the famous one with Eli Manning doing Dirty Dancing with the New York Giants, and he's great.
Mhm.
And so the idea was that you think they're enemies, and everyone in Boston's being very nice. In some of the takes that we didn't use, I'll say this: we had to kiss each other.
Okay.
Yeah, and it because
Interesting,
it's one of those
interesting.
things. It just mentions just, but and I'm like, can you be comfortable kissing another guy? And I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we kissed on the lips for several takes, and I was like, all right,
And that
acting.
didn't end up in the final cut.
No, I think the laughs were huge. It might have just been too much. I mean, the whole thing
Yeah.
with any performance, and this, I've been cut from movies before too, is that it
Mhm.
has to fit into the whole thing. And
Yeah.
maybe that was too extreme, but they were good to us. I thought the whole thing was like a movie. It was funny.
Yeah, that is hilarious, honestly. I saw it like I said, I saw it a couple of times and I just like could not stop laughing because it felt so authentic. But it was in a setting that was obviously like written
Yeah, yeah.
for the purposes of the commercial. So that's awesome. I'm glad you got to experience that.
Yeah.
So kind of going off of commercials, I've always wondered what the difference is between being on set for a commercial, right? And then being on a film set. Like, do you feel there's more pressure from you as the actor to really deliver on your performance in a commercial compared to versus on a film set, or is it like the same? I mean, I'm asking because like I don't know, and I'm sure like people listening in would love to
Yeah.
know too. Like what what is that like in
No,
terms
no.
of feeling the pressure or feeling relaxed? I guess it could also depend on the director, the people who you're surrounded by too, right? Like what's the vibe?
Yeah, it's interesting. So prior to that, I had done a few smaller non-union commercials where it was just like really a couple guys and a camera, and there was no pressure at all because it's just about selling a product to a small regional market, and I felt like those were lower stakes, so to speak.
Hmm.
With this Super Bowl one, it felt like like the biggest set I had been on because they moved so quickly to get this done. So there's four cameras, there's a huge crew. They built part of Fenway Park at BU, And I felt like, and they were like, we have 2 hours to do this, which is a short amount of time to film a scene, like a lot of actors would know. And
Mhm.
but the director was so good at what he did. He knew how to give adjustments. Okay, like say this, try that. And he really was able to put it together quickly. So you're having fun, but I would say being good at improv would help a lot in these scenarios because it's
Mhm.
thinking on your feet, not second guessing yourself. Uh, Again, it was a Super Bowl commercial, kind of an interesting theme. I'm not sure for other ones. It felt like there was a lot of pressure, so to speak, but it was also really fun, but much faster than a film set, for sure.
Yeah.
In and out, yeah.
That's cool. So, how many extras were in that specific in going back to the Sam Adams commercial, how many extras were in that specific commercial? You're saying it felt like it was more on a larger scale compared to stuff that you've done previously? Like, what
For
did
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, for commercials certainly, but it was also the scale of it. You're on the bleachers at BU, the Mass Pike's there, the whole crew, and I think there was probably like 20 extras. I
Mhm.
mean, it wasn't like I was nervous, but I definitely felt like, oh, okay, we got to deliver quickly
Yeah.
here. And uh, but I'll say this, Greg, the guy that plays your cousin from Boston, was great. He was super helpful. He's so familiar with how these go that
Mhm.
he helped it along. Like he would be holding the beer cans. He's like, switch it this way so they can see Sam Adams, which is
Mhm.
like helpful, to make it
Yeah.
move.
Because
So,
again, you're selling the product, right? That's like the ultimate
mhm.
goal of any commercial that you're in, is to really hone in on that. So, what was preparation? I guess what's preparation like in general for any commercial? I'd love to talk about that first, and then we'll dive into your film stuff a little bit. But you're giving the script, right? You
Yeah.
have other actors that you're going to be on set with. Um, you mentioned that improv is kind of key when it comes to these types of commercials. Are there people on set that are a little bit strict when it comes to that? Like I know I've not commercials specifically, but on films I've had experiences where maybe I forget a particular phrase or I say a line that I'm not supposed to or a word that I'm kind of replacing
Yeah.
compared to the word that's actually on the script and the writer's like, "Mm-mm, don't change my word. Don't do
Yeah.
that." Like like has that ever happened to you or have you ever worked with people like that commercial wise? I guess I'm like throwing a bunch of stuff at you at the
No, no,
same
no,
time. Like,
no.
what's preparation? Have you worked with people who are strict? But yeah.
Yeah, with the dialogue, I think it always depends. Some people will let you improv, and some people want the word perfect. I've done a couple commercials where I'm like reading off a teleprompter, and there's a phone number, there's an email address, and that one I'm just trying to get my voice right. Make sure I've drank water before and
Mhm.
enunciate and do some vocal warm-ups because it's more of a challenge in that than it is acting. What I loved, and this is why I don't do a ton of commercials, what I loved about that Sam Adams one was it was like a scene. It was just a scene in a movie. I didn't really even think about personally, I'll be honest, the beer at all. Because it
Mhm.
was just like be a Boston guy, come in, how are we coming in? We're coming in angry and then we embrace, and that's the arc of the scene.
Mhm.
But it was written as me saying, "Hey, I hope both teams just have fun today." And immediately the director's like, "Let's try some other stuff." But really, he was really helping it along. Like, say, welcome to Boston. I was probably only adding a little bit in that scenario.
Okay.
But it was just being open to try different things, and the more loose and comfortable and relaxed you are, I think the more fun you have. That was a fun one.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think the more natural it comes across too, right? Like I always say like I could tell when an actor is stressed or when an actor feels under pressure because it comes across on screen, whether or not they notice it or not. And I do that myself too. Like when I'm on screen, I'm like, that scene wasn't the best. I can tell I was tense. But
yeah, it's like you
yeah.
feel it. I've looked at some of my older stuff, and I'm like, I can see that I'm nervous. Even if they can't, I can see it in my face. But
Mhm.
But yeah, that was. And the other thing I do if it's a Boston accent thing is I have a line that gets me in the accent. I forget who taught to me, but it's Mayor Marty Walsh parked his car on Com Ave, but you say in a Boston accent, so it's Mayor Marty Walsh parked his car
Practice
on
kind of
Com Ave,
might have. Yeah.
and it just gets all the right vowels and letters of the Boston accent, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah. That is awesome. That's
Yeah,
really cool. I feel like the Boston accent is very unique in its own way. I guess
definitely
you could
yes.
say that. So getting into film and projects you've been in, I want to ask what do you feel that over the years you've noticed you've been kind of typecast as? I don't want
Mm,
to say like typecast because I'm not very fond of the term.
yeah.
I feel like everyone, has the ability and the flexibility to kind of have a wide range of what they want to portray themselves as when it comes to acting. Um, I, for example, get I think like the sad or the horror girl or whatever. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
usually cast in those themes, so I'd love to know like typically what do you feel you're typecast as?
Yeah, I was just having this conversation earlier today with somebody.
Mhm.
It's so Irish American look, police officers, any level of law enforcement, from security guard to detectives to I've played ICE agents, New York cops, all that.
Mhm.
Or some kind of Boston cliche, whether it's like a Red Sox fan or a Southie guy. And that's for the bigger films or bigger, I don't know what you'd call them, bigger budget things around here. That's normally the auditions I get. But that's why I love doing indie films because I can be like, look, this is what I can also do,
Mhm.
which is, I played a guy from Detroit last spring on a short film that was a soap opera actor, and that was completely different. Because I'm like you, I don't, as much as I love to act, whether I don't know, how you feel about the horror stuff. I love the horror stuff, but
Yeah, I love the horror stuff. It calms me down.
yeah, and like
It's so weird.
a gig is a gig, and a day on
Yeah.
set's better. But yeah, I think as artists, we always want to break that if we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Would you so you mentioned you get more of like the serious, like the policeman type of like Irish type of typecast roles. What would you say your like ideal dream role would be? Like a role that you're like, okay, if I put this into my reel, I know that it's gonna one stand out, two feel more aligned to what I want to be portrayed as an actor. Like what would you define that to be for you? Or if you have one, if you don't, I mean, that's cool, but do you have like an ideal role that you want to put out there for people to know like, okay, Brian
Yeah.
can do the other stuff, but oh crap, I didn't know he could do that too. You know what I mean?
Right. It's going to be kind of a weird answer because I'm going to use an actual film, but I watched it
Okay.
again
Yeah, go for it.
recently and,
Yeah.
and I thought of it. And it's a role like that, like Jim Carrey's role in The Truman Show, something where there's like comedy and emotional, and it's somebody you root for and it's a likable character. A lot of the ones like play, and you don't prejudge your character doesn't dislike themselves unless
Right.
that's in the breakdown. But,
Yeah.
um, it's something because that's how I think of myself, sort of like a goofball, maybe a lovable goofball. Maybe I'm not. Who knows?
Yeah, I feel
But
that.
sometimes like I was at a rap party or something recently, and someone came up to me from the movie, or no, it was a screening, and she goes, "Oh, you're nice in person." I was like, "No, yeah, I just
Oh
that's just
no.
like a goofy thing I do. I don't walk up to people with shotguns." And
You're
so
actually human. You're a good
yeah.
person.
And I love the Truman Show and the idea. I think there's so many great moments in it, and it was really kind of when Jim Carrey went to the next level. Not comparing myself to him, but
Right.
something like that in comedy, any kind of comedy. But I love like the Judd Apatow style of comedy too, where it's sort of there's some drama and real human stories mixed in.
Like a mix of both. Yeah. I've
Yeah.
actually I think I saw one of your you made like a sketch, right? Like in the car, like door dashing or something. This was like a while back. You had posted it and I was like, this is
Probably.
hilarious. Like give Brian his own skit comedy show right now. I will pay to watch this man
Uh,
perform. It was so good. Was that just
it's
like on the fly or do you do skits like every now and then?
it's somewhat on the fly. Like when you feel inspired, I always feel kind of nervous posting stuff like that to social media. It's hard to get over like a TikTok style thing. I don't
Mm,
do TikTok, but
mhm.
I think you just gotta let that go and have fun and be like, if people judge it, fine. But yeah, sketch comedy, like SNL was a dream at one point, but I don't know. There
It's
are
so achievable. Why not? You were in a Super Bowl commercial. Anything
maybe
is possible.
their audition process is crazy though. That you have to be invited, and then you have 5 minutes to make them laugh. Like you can bring them.
What? Wait, are we allowed to talk about this?
Oh yeah,
SNL?
yeah. It's just
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
this
I
is
was just like,
public information. I have not auditioned, but it's
oh, okay. But you know kind of
um
what it's like. So you said you have to, sorry, say that again. You have to impress how many
yeah,
people?
what it's been in the past, and a lot of people have talked about it that have been on the show, is like
Mhm,
you can bring like three impressions of anything. Can be famous people, it can be an impression of someone we haven't met, or you can do
mhm,
like five minutes of stand up. But it's to a room with like Lauren Michaels and whoever else works there at the time, and
mhm.
they can't laugh. That's the rule. So
What? Oh, yeah,
you
because then they'd be biased, I guess. Then you'd know, like, oh,
right.
I'm doing good. Like, you're
So
liking.
I think of that as the most high pressure audition I've ever heard of.
Oh, oh
So,
man.
but anyways, sketch comedy, I love it. Key and Peele, all the guys that have been great over the years, I love it.
Yeah, they're great. No, I'm sure like, you got to put yourself out there and you're doing great. So like I don't see why you couldn't be on an SNL skit like feature or recurring role. Um that reminds me, kind of sidetracking a little bit. I'm sure you know Kenan Thompson, right?
Of course, yeah,
He's been on SNL forever.
yeah, the
Um
longest running.
he's awesome. I think he's pretty much done sketch comedy his whole life because I remember he started in All That,
Yeah.
right? And then he kind of just continued to make his way up in that regard as well. So anything is possible. Anything
Oh
is
yeah.
possible. Don't ever
I
say no. SNL can definitely be on your future list for sure. So
Yeah, I've been watching Keenan, it feels like my whole life, really. And he just redid Good Burger with Kel Mitchell. And I saw that movie on whatever it was, I think it was my ninth birthday in theaters. And I
really?
watched it. Yeah, I watched it again streaming. It was on Paramount Plus. It was filmed in New England too, the sequel.
What? Like where in New England?
I want to say Rhode Island, but it was somewhere in New England.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And
so cool. And they have a Good Burger too now, right? Or it's
yeah,
in the works? Oh,
no, that
that's
was
the
the,
one.
yeah,
Oh,
that's the,
that's the one. Oh, okay, okay. I thought you were talking about the VHS because I remember I bought it on VHS when it was still on VHS, the first one.
yeah. Yeah, that one was filmed in California.
Oh, okay.
In the 90s or whatever, but then they filmed the sequel here and it's actually really good for a 25-year sequel later with
Yeah,
adults. They did a great job, I thought.
that's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, the first one, I feel like it's hard for me to say that the second movies are usually better or about the same than the first because to me I'm like an OG. Like the
Oh yeah.
first one, I don't know. Like there's just something about the first film that like after the other ones come out, I'm like it was
Oh,
good, but you
yeah.
know, um
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I guess what I liked about it is it was just Kel looked like he picked up where he left off, and Keenan, who's been more in the spotlight since, kind of it seemed like go shine Kel, and Kel was just hilarious as Ed, and
yeah.
I don't know. I'm hyping Good Burger 2 a lot, but I I loved it.
Sponsored by Good Burger.
Yeah, I know.
Paramount Plus. No, that's awesome. Yeah, they're a really funny bunch. Key and Peele are hilarious too.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, so going back into, filmmaking and projects and stuff that you've been in, is there anything that you want to discuss, like a project that you've been really proud of or that you're currently working on? I do want to bring up one of your most recent films, but I want to know if there is a particular film you wanted to discuss first and what that experience was like for you in terms of how you got it and, what
Yeah,
that
yeah,
whole
sure.
process was like.
Yeah, well, we can talk about the other one later, but just to,
Yeah.
I guess, mention, you know what it was? It's not finished yet, but
Okay.
last fall I filmed. It was an independent feature film
Mhm.
on, I don't know what you'd call it, one of those under 20K budgets. So whatever that is, ultra micro low budget. And
Micro.
yeah, it was a feature length film though. It was like around 90 minutes, written by Stephen Bogart and Paul Trainer, these two guys. And I got to play the lead. And just getting to experience playing a lead character in a feature film working, it still took us a few months to do.
Yeah.
And it was just like doing it just for the art. Everyone knows this isn't going to get distribution. We're not getting famous. We're just filming it. And I learned so much about not only playing the full act of a character over that much time, but also, filming out of order and all that with that much material. I had just done short films before. So,
Mhm. Was this
and
your first feature? Like
it was my,
90?
in as a bigger character. I'd been in a few
Right.
other features, but it was just a few scenes. My first feature was a movie called Northern Shade, which I'm also very proud of.
Nice.
That's on Tubi right now. Plug.
Check it out,
Um,
you guys. Northern Shade?
Northern Shade, yes.
Northern Shade on Tubi, featuring Brian J. McDonald.
You can drop the J. It seems like no one wants to credit me with it. They're like, "What do you
I
think
was
you're
gonna.
my?"
It was so funny because I was actually gonna introduce you as Brian J. McDonald, but then I'm just gonna say Brian McDonald. I'm just gonna say
I
Brian.
I only did it because like IMDb, if you have a dual name, it adds like the Roman numerals next to it.
Oh yeah,
So for Brian McDonald, when I first had it, I was the 31st one. I was like XXXI, and I'm like, I don't want that. So I just added the J, and it became a thing. But
I'm gonna be unique. What does the J stand for?
James, it's my dad's name.
James, Brian James. Okay, very
Yeah,
cool.
Brian
Oh,
James
that's
kind of sound. I considered using that as a state, but I was like,
as a stage
ah,
name, just
yeah,
James. The J.
Brian
JJ.
James.
The second J is silent.
Exactly. But
That's
and
wild.
you did a longer length film once. I saw on Vimeo or something. You're blowing bubble gum. You're kind of a rough kid. What was that called?
Oh, I was a yeah, I was a druggie.
Drugs. Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah. I played it's called Queen Cleo. It was a
Yeah,
student film. It was actually a senior thesis film that I did when I was at Northeastern, and I played a what was called a disadvantaged. That was the description. A disadvantaged pharmacy student who is trying to make ends meet for her family. They're low income.
yeah,
They don't have much going for them, unfortunately. And I think my mom. I don't know if my mom if the writer who wrote the character of my mother was sick, or I don't know, there was some motivation for me to make the money for my family, and so I started selling drugs, recreational drugs, with my professor. So it
yeah,
was kind of like a Breaking Bad spin-off type thing.
yeah.
Oh, that was so much fun. I played a
It's good.
badass. It was so weird for me because I'm not used to that type of role. And going back to typecasting, it's like, oh man, like I wish I could do more of those roles or like comical roles or stuff like that. But
Well, that's why, because I was on Vimeo or something. I think it can be watched because I was,
Vimeo, yeah, yeah, yeah. You
yeah,
you guys
yeah.
can watch it. Yeah, yeah. Queen
I watched
Cleo.
it, and I'm like, wow, because I remember you. We met on that little horror thing, and you were kind of playing like in like a high school girl. I don't know what the age of your character, but
Yeah, like
you
teenager.
seemed much younger. And then in this, I was like, oh, she's like a badass, and this
Well,
kind of like,
it's so funny you mentioned that because I was almost like de-aged, like because I
oh
shot
yeah,
Queen Cleo and I was supposed to play a high schooler, I mean a college student, right? And
yeah,
so when we did, what was that movie called? The Madman Chronicle. Actually, no. No, 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 you're right. Forget that. I was assuming that I was playing a much older role when I did the Man Chronicles, but I
oh
wasn't. I was playing a junior in high school or something like that. Whereas Queen Cleo, I was playing like a legit high school, like a college student. So
yeah. But
yeah.
it was even just the con, and it was a great performance. I wanted to bring it up at some point, but it was a
Oh, thank
longer
you.
length thing. It wasn't like super short. Wasn't it like 30 minutes? Or am I?
It was, yeah, it was roughly like 25-ish minutes or so. It was, yeah, it was student led. But yeah, it was so much fun. I loved the costumes. I feel like costuming adds so much to a performance. I don't know
Hmm.
if you've done this when you're trying to get into character, but when I'm rehearsing, I tend to wear the clothes that my character is going to wear that day on set, just to get myself into that like psychological, like, I don't know, like mindset.
What
Um,
100%. And I try to do like, how does this person walk if there's any
exactly.
prop they're using, how they handle it. And for like these Boston ones, I do this kind of like shuffle feet thing where it kind of just and I do that in the wardrobe. I was doing it the other day for an audition. I had work boots on and stuff, and just trying. I probably looked crazy because I was doing this in the street and walking.
Everyone's just staring at you like, what is this
Yeah.
guy doing? But if you do it in California, it's just like normal.
Well, that the great thing was I was by Slate Casting, which is near the Starbucks. I guess it's somewhere near Emerson. And the cashier goes, "What are you doing today?" And I don't know why. I just said I was going to a commercial audit. Maybe I was proud of myself. Who knows? He goes, "Oh, great, man! I'm an actor too. Break a leg." I'm like, "Of course you are."
Yeah, yeah, that's
You
normal.
got you
That's
got
the
you
usual.
went to Emerson. So, but anyways, yeah, I'll try to walk and uh same thing. Police uniforms, like they kind of stand a certain way, shoulders back,
Hmm.
the way you hold the belt and all that.
Right, because they're going to be very different than what how you would walk, how you would act. So it's important to always study that too. And I feel you are a very natural actor, and I'm not just saying that. Like I genuinely mean that.
Well, thank you.
When you're performing, when you're on screen, it doesn't feel like you're playing a character because you do it so well. So like what do you center on to get to that level? Is it just being in the moment, feeling present, feeling relaxed? Like how do you get to that point in your performances?
Yeah, present and relaxed, certainly. I never did a lot of theater. I mean, that was where I started, where I was taught acting, was on a stage. But so
Mhm.
some people that have done that, I think sometimes like, oh, you don't have to project as much. You can be quiet. And I understood that side of it maybe a bit easier because I never had to project to the back of the room too much. I only did it, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So in that understated, so to speak, grounded thing, I always sort of understood, but I just try to really like listen and not think about how I should say the line ever or how it should sound and make all these decisions ahead of time.
Mhm.
Um, to allow room for not necessarily improv in terms of dialogue, but for just things to happen naturally and take the beats and pauses. I learned from, well, this is going to lead into that other film we are going to talk about, but
Yeah, 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 for sure.
a very well-respected actor who's been in this business for a long time. He was taking so long in between the lines, and I realized, oh yeah, they can cut the dead space if they need to. There's
Right.
no sense to rush. And yeah, I think relaxation is a huge part of it. I think there's a little bit of nerves in the beginning, and I appreciate you saying that. But I think my first performances on camera, I probably looked a bit stiff and nervous and
I
actor
mean,
voice.
no, hey, it happens to the best of us. I mean, that's how
Yeah,
you start, right? Like if you
right.
don't progress from that and learn from that, then it's going to be harder to improve your performances later on in other projects. So,
Yeah.
um,
And what one of them mentioned, it's like it's film, so there's takes like well, it's digital. So there's
yeah,
there's takes it's not caught like so play the opposite. Like maybe you've been yelling every time in this try it where it's like it's just kind of subtle. Like just try different things.
yeah,
I think in the beginning I was really obsessed with it needs to sound this way and now I am willing to,
to
well,
change it up.
yeah, what else could it be?
Right. And there's so many ways to say a line, right? And
Hmm.
and I feel like I'm sure if you've experienced this too based on what you said, but sometimes I've felt when I'm acting, if I say a line a certain way as many times as possible, it becomes like my child and I can't see the line read
Hmm.
any other way. And then when I get on set and the director's like, okay, I want you to do it this way. It's like, shit, like I've already programmed my brain to say that. Like, how do I think that through and give an authentic performance? But then I think it comes back to staying true to the character. Like
Yeah.
regardless if you get a brand new page or like a brand new script the next day, which I doubt that happens, but likely some changes here
Yeah.
and there, you have to understand and keep in mind that these changes will happen. But at the end of the day, being honest with your character is going to be so helpful and understanding their wants and needs and so on and so forth. But I totally get that. It's hard to say, I'm not going to do the line the way you want me to because I'm so accustomed to doing it the way I've done it. But it
Yeah,
happens. It happens.
it's that was probably the one thing I learned too doing that indie film Orange Crush that I was talking about is that
Hmm.
I memorize my lines, I listen to them back and say them, and I'm not like visual, I'm auditory. So
Hmm.
I sometimes though the problem with that is I'll get stuck into a delivery of a line, um, like what you just said, and I'm like it's got to sound this way, and then it's so sometimes now I'll record lines and then I'll like say them a different way and say them a different way and just kind of flip it so I'm loose with it still,
Hmm.
and be confident that we are human beings playing human beings. Like everyone can do this if they can just. I believe every actor can do this. We relax into it, stay
Yeah.
true to the character. It'll
If
be
they can
authentic.
just be. And to briefly mention too, I think I always say one of the hardest things you have to do as an actor is just be human. And it's
Hmm.
so hard to do that because when we're just living our daily lives, we're not really thinking about how we're moving or, doing certain things or whether or not we have mannerisms.
Yeah.
Um, so it's tough. But again, the more you practice, the easier it gets, the more relaxed you feel, the easier it gets over time.
Yeah,
So,
I think even practicing self-tapes I've seen before, you've uploaded like monologues. The one you did with your little brother made me cry. The when you were doing the
oh, Charlie, that was an original monologue I wrote. Yeah,
Yeah,
Charlie and
it was
Hazel. Yeah, yeah.
beautiful. But
Thank you.
I do a lot of those and you look at them back, you might be like, "Ooh, like I do something weird with my eye." And you kind of like yeah, you do have to watch yourself and be
Hmm.
not a tough critic, but in what is one thing I used to always do? I'm trying to
Be
think.
mindful.
Something like this with my arm. I did something weird with my arm. I was always putting it on my hip, like a little teapot.
Like as you were acting, or like for
Yeah, like
auditions.
it was almost like I don't want to call it a tick in audition self tapes because it's
Okay.
you're just you're just standing on a mark. It gets and and stillness and relaxing and it's fine just to be like you said.
Just to be in the moment. Yeah. Um, what was I gonna? Oh, yes, I do. I want to talk about Finest Kind,
Ooh.
the film that you were in. You played a supporting role, and again, let me know how much we can talk about this.
Oh, we're good. It's out.
Good. It's out in the open. Out in the
Yeah.
open. If y'all haven't seen Finest Kind, definitely watch it. I have yet to watch it. I apologize. Please
No.
don't hate me. But I did see. I saw the trailer and I saw some like the part of your reel that you were in, and you play a badass, right? You can you tell us more about your role there?
Yeah. I so the I'll lead into it with a brief synopsis of the film. It's about these
Yeah.
two brothers who half brothers who reconnect. Ben Foster is the older brother. Toby Wallace plays the younger brother.
Mm-hmm.
Toby's just graduated college. He wants to go fishing. He's not sure what he wants to do. He just graduated school. In the first half of the movie is kind of a coming of age slice of life. He's fishing with his brother and this crew, and he meets a girl played by Jenna Ortega,
Mm-hmm.
which was cool to work on a set with
That's
her.
wild. That is
And
wild.
it was before Wednesday came out, so no one had any idea.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, they're keep running into bad luck, and their boat gets impounded. They need to come up with $100,000. They have no way to do it. Tommy
Mm-hmm.
Lee Jones plays the father, and it's his boat, and they decide to get involved with these drug dealers, and
Yep.
that's who I play, a member of that crew.
Oh, okay.
There's like three of us, so essentially being like the drugs are being dumped in the ocean. You're fishermen. You have the means to go get them for us. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of giving away a lot of the movie, but really it's all in the trailer. They put everything in the trailers now.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
So it's like they kind of depend on you are they depending on you to make ends meet pretty much? Are you trying to make a deal with them?
we are essentially like part of a drug, a crime syndicate, and we're gonna pay them like a fee to pick it up, but it's a lot of like I think in the movie it's heroin, so it's
Uh,
worth a lot more money than we're paying them. So just pick it up. We'll pay you the 100 grand. You get your boat back. Go be
mm-hmm.
fishermen, and then we'll go sell our drugs and destroy our country.
Oh, dang.
But
Okay.
so like but we're very in a sense, I hate to say this, but like one dimensional in this story where we are just there to be the bad guys,
Mm-hmm.
and um but there's a few scenes because stuff happens. Things don't always go according to plan. And
Right, right. Is there ever, and I don't mean for you to spoil the movie in any way, but is there ever like a change in these characters' motivations throughout, do you feel? I guess obviously yours in particular.
yeah, I mean the main, I mean one of it's that some people have thought, is this movie like two movies in one? But the writer, he's won an Oscar before. He wrote the screenplay for Mystic River, LA Confidential, Brian Helgeland.
What?
He's
Probably have to delete this afterwards.
no.
No, I'm
It's
just
cool.
kidding.
Phenomenal guy, phenomenal writer, and I talked to him at the screening, but he's even said it is kind of these two movies where it's this slice of life coming of age story, and then it's this crime thriller, and it's sort
Mhm.
of a hybrid of these two movies. So those characters go through a lot. In the beginning, we're kind of like, all right, don't let us down. We'll see you tomorrow, and then when we don't see them tomorrow, then we change a lot. And I mean, I'm sort of like I have a few lines. I'm like a henchman, so to speak. But I
Mhm.
think the challenge was being intimidating enough so these guys will do what we ask them to do. And like I have a close up in the first scene with no lines, so it's like be interesting, be menacing, and really
Mhm.
show them you mean, which was cool because
Give
I'm
them
not like,
face. Give
yeah,
them
so
face.
it's that's the thing that they put in the trailer. I'm like playing with a coffee and he goes, "Is he with you guys?" And I just stare up
You
like
just
this.
like pan up ever so slightly and it's so
Yeah.
fun. Like I know it's you because I know you're a nice person, so it's funny to like see you kind of really hone in on that
Yeah.
character.
It was fun, and then I had a cool scene with a shotgun in a hallway, which oh my God, handling guns on a set is a whole other thing now. I mean, that was stressful.
Oh gosh, that must have been stressful. Wait, what was what was the shotgun like? Was it
I
obviously
can,
it wasn't real, right? They
well,
used fake ammunition.
yeah, and on our set, I mean, that tragedy on the other Rust had happened like a month before. So
Mhm.
on Finest Kind, they chose not to use any blanks or anything. Everything was like a replica gun, and they were going to add muzzle flashes and everything in post, which is
Mhm.
fine, by the way, for anyone, it's not worth it for anyone to get hurt.
Yeah,
But
for
anyways,
sure.
it's a replica, so it looks real. But here's the funny thing is they do the whole safety talk, and I'm kind of nervous because I'm not a gun person at all.
Right.
And we're doing the takes, and so shotgun. So I'm going like this, like like every time, it's like I've seen in movies.
Uh-huh.
And like we've done a couple takes, and one of the guys goes, he's actually one of the other actors, Aaron Stanford, goes, he's racking it the shotgun backwards. He's going, and I
Oh
and
no.
then but then like nobody knew because it's a bunch of actors and writers and theater dorks that don't know anything about guns. So
Yeah.
finally, like a guy comes over and he goes, "Yeah, you got to go front and back up like this." So I was doing it backwards, and Aaron saved the day.
That is
So
hilarious.
so I didn't
Oh
look
my
silly,
gosh. Cause
but
you corner the guys, right? In that scene where you're using the gun.
yeah, they have been trying to dodge us, and we find them in the hallway.
You
But it
find them in the
was
hallway.
what was funny about that too is that like that was the first scene I filmed. The rest of that scene is filmed on a soundstage because you can't get all the cameras in the apartment. So
Mhm.
I was there on my own that day. It was my first day. I'm just meeting everybody, and I'm just Brian from like down the street. It's like
That's
Ben Foster and
hilarious.
Toby and Ishmael Cordova, who's just on Lord of the Rings, and I rack this shotgun, and Toby after the take is just smiling. He goes, "Hey, how are you?" He's from Australia. And I'm like, "Oh, sorry, nice to meet you. It's a helpful way to introduce myself." And
I'm sorry I am being kind of
yeah,
scared right now.
it was a cool icebreaker though,
Yeah.
and then they were great. Yeah, it was an amazing cast.
Where was this filming again? It was in the New England area, right?
Yeah, it was in it takes place in New Bedford, so the
Right.
New Bedford, Fairhaven, those towns. I filmed one day there, and then there were times we filmed a little. I was in Canton on a one of the stages there,
Mhm.
and in Brockton, because the donut shop we met them in, it exists in New Bedford, but they used the one in Brockton.
Mhm.
Um, movie magic, but
Movie magic.
so yeah, and I think they filmed offshore off the coast of Gloucester for some of the fishing stuff.
Mhm. It's
Um,
it's
yeah.
funny that you Oh, sorry, what was that?
No, no, I was just saying because a lot of the scenes take place at sea, so I believe they were, somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, but I think off Gloucester is where they went.
Yeah, they did like a what do you call it? A little cheat sheet, little setting cheat sheet or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like that to make it look like it's somewhere else. I kind of
yeah,
love when films do that. It's so creative. I don't know.
yeah. And
I
it's,
think it's interesting.
I know originally they wanted to film our donut shop scenes. You'll see if you see it, like we meet them in a donut shop and stuff happens at the end. But it's like drug deals and shootings, and Dunkin' Donuts was probably like, no, we're not. That's not great for our business.
Just imagine Ben Affleck coming in like doing a little cameo.
Yeah. I don't
That's
know that's
Duncan.
why, but I know I saw in an interview and I heard the director and the producer say we tried for Duncan, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that conversation was 20 seconds long. Like,
Yeah.
what are you
What are you talking
So,
about? Oh
yeah.
man, that's wild. That it's funny because the color grading, not that I'm a color grader, but I'm always appreciative of color and color theory when it comes to film. I haven't seen Coda. I don't know if have you seen Coda?
No, I have not. I
It
should.
reminded Finest Kind, the color grading in that movie reminded me of like the trailer that I saw for Coda. Like it seemed like a very type of serene in a way type of film, but also had its underlying like pressure points.
Yeah, kind of
Um,
grit. I mean, it's similar. They're both. I think Coda has their fishing family in that
yeah,
movie.
exactly. It's
Yeah,
like the same setting too, like similar.
I loved what they did. Yeah, with Finest Kind again, this kind of tale of two stories. At the beginning of the movie is very bright and sunny, and it feels like the whole second half of the movie is overcast. And I love what they did with the editing and the cinematographer. This guy Krill Forsberg lear got famous like basically filming extreme athletes like skiers and stuff. And so he was great for filming these scenes on the ocean, which are, they didn't use CGI, so they really had to um, they needed a skilled cinematographer that could capture all that without, I guess, making the audience seasick and dizzy.
Seasick as the boat is moving.
Yeah. So it was real cool to see something like that come all together. I mean, you really get to grow your appreciation for the whole process of filmmaking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I experienced that firsthand with Ain't It Lovely, my thriller, because I was
Yeah.
the casting director, the actor, the writer, the director, the costume designer, the set designer, the producer. I'm not even BSing you right now. Like I played every single role.
Are you in
And
it too?
I'm in it too, and I wrote it and I directed it and I did the costume design and set design and
Oh my God.
and I
Is it out
casted
or
it as well.
is it in festivals or is it out?
Yeah, it's currently in festivals right now, not to like segue, not to not to
No,
segue
no,
into
no.
this,
Yeah.
but it's currently in the film festival circuit, so waiting to hear back, see if it got in, if it won anything. At the end of the day, I'm just glad it happened. I'm so grateful, for everyone that supported the film, donated, even just like showed their support through like messaging me and stuff like that. You, especially, I really appreciated you, admiring the poster and reaching out and just showing interest. It means a lot because a lot of work went into it, time, money, effort, everything. But yeah, going back to what you were saying, you really when you're in these films and even when you're watching the films, you learn um to get have a better appreciation for every not only everyone involved but what they do, right? So like costume designer, you don't realize how important costume design is until like you're actually on a film set
Oh
or
yeah.
you've created it yourself. It's like it adds so much.
It's I sometimes it's tough for me because the first time I watch a film, I'll be watching it as an acting dork or film because and then I can appreciate it. But
Mhm.
what was on TV the other day? John Wick or something. And it's like these fight scenes
Oh,
that go
I
on
love John Wick.
like 20 minutes. And in like Finest Kind, for example, in a couple other things, I had to do a stunt where basically like something happens and I fall off a table. Like
Mhm.
probably for a stuntman, like easy work. And it took so long to learn. And I'm like, they're doing so much. It's fighting, it's choreography, and they got to capture it all.
Mhm.
It blows my mind. I hope people appreciate it because those films like John Wick or whatever. Oh my God, I can't.
I love how he has like barely any lines. It's just action, but he's saying so much through his face. In
I
John Wick, it's so funny.
and
Oh man.
I'd say this one thing too. So I love Keanu Reeves. I don't know why.
Hmm.
I just always found him likable, and I think as time's gone on, people have learned he's a really great person too, like
He seems
outside of
humble.
acting,
Yeah.
humble and just kind and gracious. And in my first acting class, in college, was intro. So no one can really act yet. We're all learning.
Hmm.
They go, "Well, I bet everyone here has seen a bad actor." And like, someone give me an example of a bad actor. I'm like, what kind of a thing is this to do on the first day? I don't know why she did this. And a few people raise their hand. They go, Keanu Reeves. And day one of acting, get defensive of Keanu Reeves. Like,
Oh
I'm like,
no.
he's done this, this, and this. You don't understand. Like, it's just the way he sounds. And I'm going through this. I'm like, what am I doing? And now to see all the success he's had again since, it just makes me happy.
Yeah. It's funny you mention him because I think I don't know if it was a documentary or just like a commentary on YouTube about like his acting career, and he had, I guess, not flops. Those words did not come out of my mouth. I don't think he's ever had a flop in his career.
Yeah,
But
but
people have said that like I guess, it's normal as an actor you get better and better and better each time. But I don't know, maybe I don't know. I don't
yeah,
necessarily
it's
agree.
what makes a film like commercial, like it earns money versus what critics like are almost two
Yeah.
completely different things. And it's
Yeah.
also, again, public information, so I'm not saying anything secret, but the guy that directed and wrote Finest Kind, Brian Helgeland, he
Mhm.
won the Oscar for Best Screenplay and the Razzie for Worst Screenplay in the same year. in 1997. And I heard him say in an interview or something somewhere that like you got to risk making a bad movie if you want to make a really good movie. So like
I guess
it's
learn from your mistakes.
yeah, and it's just like not everyone's gonna connect to, and sometimes, so like I think anyone who's been in this business like those two for decades, you're gonna have ones that are critically acclaimed, not big box office. But
But wait,
Keanu has earned a lot at the box office.
yeah, he's wild. Like I
Yeah,
just think he's a wild person, but in like the night, I mean that in the nicest way possible. Um,
yeah.
but wait, hold on. They give out awards for worst films? Is that
Oh,
an
you didn't know about the
actual thing?
Razzies?
No,
Yeah,
I've never heard of the Razzies.
it's not like televised or anything, but it's always been a thing. Like I think it's been
Oh.
around. I don't know how long it's been around, but they're adjusting it because some of the categories have been mean in the past.
Oh, okay.
Like they've given worst performance to like a 12-year-old, and they're like, okay, guys, relax. Like keep it to adults. But
Oh no.
yeah, and it usually has more to do, maybe with Rotten Tomatoes now, people, although I hate that website.
I
But
hate, yeah. It's not a good
it's
website.
and it's I don't like the way it ranks films, but it like the way the system works, the rating system. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's called the Razzies, and I think it's usually like the day before, the day after the Oscars, and
That's wild. Wait, so it's not obviously it's not televised. Is it like on YouTube or something like that?
I
Or
think they just send out the list, whoever elects it, and
oh, okay.
they'll say what the worst
What the
film.
worst films were. Oh man.
But
That's
he won it. Brian won that, or I guess whatever you want to look at it. In the
mhm.
same year, the Oscar. So basically saying like one doesn't mean you're terrible, and one doesn't mean you're the best ever. Like this is just part. Not everything's gonna connect,
Right.
but yeah.
You're still
So
trucking along
yeah.
regardless and
So if
making
Keanu's had a
millions.
few,
So
yeah, if Keanu's had a few bumps in the road, I'll forgive him. I love The Matrix. I love John Wick. I love
yeah.
Speed, and even some of his other, he's done so many different things. He's a cool
Yeah.
guy.
He's the best. He's the best.
Leave Keanu alone, everyone. No,
Yeah,
kidding.
don't bully Keanu, guys. We got his back.
Yeah,
He's our friend.
yeah,
um, but yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm so glad that you've had all these, film experiences being on. I mean, it's a Hollywood set. You're with other actors who've been in the game as well, as long as you have, and um, just being there firsthand on set must be really incredible. So feel proud of the work you've done, and know that SNL can definitely be on your list. But before we wrap up here, I do want to ask you what advice you might have for current actors, or people who are looking to get into the entertainment industry and maybe they just don't know how to get started, or they don't have the support that they deserve or that they need. What would you say to those people? What would you recommend be like the first thing they do if they aren't doing it already?
yeah. The first part about the support they need, if it's friends and they don't support you going for your passion or what you love, I would say like we need to look at different friends because
Cut the
that's what I've
ties.
yeah, cut
Cut
the
the
tie,
ties.
but obviously, there's financial parts of support too, and you have to work and earn a living.
Mhm.
I started, I mean, never mind the college stuff, but just taking acting classes at the local casting companies,
Mhm.
because I didn't know where else to go. So that was CP Casting, Boston Casting, and then I kind of started making connections from there and training other places. But
Mhm.
so I met the casting directors. Then I would audition for student films and indie films and
Mhm.
things like that. I didn't feel like I needed an agent early on. I also wasn't ready for one. And then,
Mhm.
once I started to get a couple credits and things, I shop my stuff around and started with a smaller one, and now I'm with a different one. And but really, I think doing it as much as possible, like getting on a set, being in front of a camera, auditioning. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get, the more relaxed you'll get, and the more confident you'll get.
Mhm.
Um, and so for me, like I work with a coach where his name's James Dumont.
Mhm.
He teaches on Zoom. He's a working actor himself. He's on The Righteous Gemstones right now. He has a million credits, and
The
he
plug.
special. Yeah. Well, I got to plug him too because I don't,
Yeah.
he during COVID especially, I mean, he really helped taught me how to self-tape, and I did probably like 500 mock self-tapes with him plus all the regular ones, and
Mhm.
getting in front of the camera with the lights and doing that over and over again, the repetition of it really helped with confidence.
Yeah.
So just finding a place to act, that's the hardest part for all of us, I feel like.
Mhm.
Because you kind of need another person to like give the lines back. Sometimes I'll read with a friend on Zoom, something like that.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it's it.
practice is key, putting yourself out there. What would you say, I guess, what would be your advice for people, let's say, who maybe don't have an acting coach or they don't have an agent or representation or a manager or anything like that, but they know they're passionate for the craft that is acting. What would you say to those people? I know a lot of people do like their own promotion, like self promotion on social media, and they post monologues and stuff like that. Like what would you say to those people? Like what can they do? How do they keep the flame, the fire going for acting when they're facing these things, or when they feel again like they don't have the guidance that they might need.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, for one, hopefully nobody's doing this to be wealthy or famous, although there are people that make a lot of money doing this.
Mhm.
It's very difficult, and you can make better money doing other things if you want, if that's the most important thing to you. So when I think about like agents and some of those things, like those are things that lead to jobs that pay. But if you love to do this, I mean, social media now, YouTube, TikTok, I used to make fun of it, but now some TikTokers are some of the favorite content I consume, and they
Mhm.
create a whole world and a scene. And you can put it up there, and I mean, look, you can be famous in a couple days doing that if that's what you want. But
Mhm.
yeah, so finding a way to work on the craft. For me, it's almost like this cathartic mental health thing doing it. Like I just feel alive when I'm playing another person.
Mhm.
Maybe it's because I don't like being myself, but uh
Same.
yeah,
I don't
and I
know. I
think
don't know who I am.
but then you upload a monologue and it's like that shows confidence and it's good and it's strong and people connect with it, and like even doing that I think is great. I think
Mhm.
a lot of people are just not criticizing. I've been guilty of this sometimes too. Is like I don't have any auditions, so I can't act. It's like write something. Write. Even if you
Right.
everyone says I'm not a writer, it's like sure you are. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Write your own stuff, make something. And once you do that, I think you learn more about how to break down a script because you've now written one. I can understand the writer's
Yeah, and
perspective.
you can understand like your writing style too, which
Yeah.
essentially can also help define like what kind of acting you're into as a result of that too. I think I think there are a lot of people out there that again, feel that they can act, they have the passion for it. They may not necessarily have the resources to do it, but I think most of the time it can also come down to networking and maybe, reaching out to people that you've been in contact with and maybe they don't necessarily want to keep the contact. I think that's kind of one of the things that might come out when it comes to that. Like let's say you've written a script, you have this great project, but maybe you just don't have the people to help make it happen. So then like what do you do from there? Is it continuing to network and reach out through like Facebook groups and stuff like that? Like what's your take on that? And I know you touched upon social media too, which I think over time social media has become a very powerful tool for content creators and people who maybe didn't think they could be influencers but suddenly became influencers. But aside from all that, um
Yeah.
what's your like method of communicate, like what's your advice for communicating with people that you might want to like
Yeah, I guess a
maintain a
lot of the
connection with?
people I try not to be very closed off. If I'm taking a class, and I've changed a lot during COVID, but if I'm in an in-person class
I'm
or
a
on
new
a set,
man.
yeah,
I'm a changed
but
man.
change man. But being open to like, don't just be closed off in your own world. Like to learn about, you can make connections on these sets. Other actors, people are always trying to, because everyone's in the same boat,
Hmm.
especially in New England. I mean, it was cool talking about those commercial on that set, but that's a small piece of these years. You got to fill it with something and find other people who are passionate. the toughest thing about making your own film, I'm sure you know this, is money.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
so
Is
much more
money. Yeah. Oh yeah.
so much more expensive than people think. It's thousands of dollars to make a film that's a few minutes long.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, there's things like Kickstarter and all that, but then you can use casting websites if you know need to fill out your cast. But I like making stuff with friends because if we're comfortable with each other, I feel like that'll be more believable on camera.
Mhm.
Um, Even if it's just like a two-person short or something like that. Uh, yeah, I don't know if I fully answered what the question was.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, basically like maintaining how to maintain communication with people that maybe you already have in your cluster or people that you've never spoken to before, but you're
Oh,
interested in
yeah.
working with them. Yeah, you pretty much touched upon that, but just curious, like maybe people are loners, like, and that's okay. And maybe they
Yeah.
don't have like a close group of friends or a close cluster. Like, what's that method of communication like in your perspective? Is it going through Facebook groups? Is it going to meetups that are around filmmaking or events like that? Like what, I guess, what
Yeah,
would you say?
I found I don't go to a lot of them, and people will make fun of me for even bringing this up, but like
Mhm.
local indie film festivals, people always seem willing to connect. It's interesting because, and this isn't by design, but like 99% of my acting friends are female, and I wonder if that's because we're competitive with the guys or something. Not that you want to be, but it just
Mhm.
seems like, but like I have these memo text conversations. We just talk about acting, what each other is doing. We read for each other.
Mhm.
Um, you know, some of them are really close friends, and some of them are just sort of like acting acquaintances, or whatever you want to call it. But
Mhm.
we stay in touch, and like it happened this fall where someone was casting a film and they needed a cop, and it was a great film, small role, but it was paying, and they said, "Oh, we know this guy Brian," and they recommended me. So it's
Right.
worked. It's on that level, the networking side has been helpful, but truthfully, like there's like an introverted part of me too, where I still feel like on the outs, and I don't really know how to like am I really in this club, or do they want me here? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I think a lot of actors are like, what do they call them? Like extroverted introverts.
Introverts,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Snap to
yeah.
that. That's me. That's literally me.
Yeah, and they're very
I feel
quiet. I
that.
mean, I think of like Joaquin Phoenix and Paul Dano, all these guys that like you see them in interviews and you're like, I just saw them on screen. They were larger
And
than
they're
life.
like blowing people up, and now they're just like so calm and collective. Like, I don't know. Have you seen
Yeah.
that interview with Joaquin Phoenix and Jim? I think it was Jimmy Fallon, where Joaquin enters with a nice tie, uh, like one of these jackets, like just a casual jacket, and then he sits. He's
Yep.
I can't do it, but he sits like
Yep.
this the entire
And
time. I'm like, was this the guy that played the Joker? It was like blowing up cars and like it's so funny.
I think it's because
Mhm.
a lot of them are like are so comfortable wearing any face but their own. Not to speak for Joaquin, but
Yeah.
some of them, I'm like, yeah, you expect so much of them, and they're just artists, and they don't really necessarily want to talk about themselves. I remember when Joaquin was accepting his Academy Award, he's talking about auditioning against Leonardo DiCaprio in the '90s and how everyone loved Leo. Like even
Yeah.
in that moment, he had to admire Leo, like he wanted it off of him, you know.
Yeah.
And that's fine because I think, yeah. So my point is, I think it's a good trait in an artist. I don't think you have to be. I think a lot of people maybe don't want to act or like, oh, but I'm not a people person. I'm not popular. I'm not talk. It's like, no, then
Yeah.
you're probably perfect because you're a thinker and and you're creative, and you're unique, which is what they want.
Unique in your own ways. Hear that, everybody? You are unique in your own way. If you are a quiet and shy person, there is nothing wrong with you. And I
Yeah.
say that too, right? Because, I mean, to be honest, starting this podcast, and I mentioned this in one of my previous episodes, but starting this podcast has been so therapeutic for me because I feel like I'm connecting more with the world and for people like you who I've known for quite some time. Um, it's helped me with my speech as well. And I consider myself to be a very shy person. Growing up, I can't say I had a great cluster of friends or a group of friends that have stayed with me for a while after school was over. But being shy and again acting doing stuff like this it helps and I feel like
Yeah.
people who are also shy or consider themselves to be like you said introverted
Yeah.
extroverts can do stuff like this, and people shouldn't be afraid to put themselves out there more and just introduce themselves, I guess,
Oh, I
to
agree.
people.
And it's like
And that's the
for
starting point, you know.
for for the most part, I find them to be the most like welcoming, open-minded, supportive communities where
Hmm.
um you will be asked to leave if there is any type of bullying. Like it's a place to be free and comfortable because you have to be vulnerable emotionally and
Hmm.
comfortable to do this. Um, but I sometimes can assimilate into different groups, but growing up, I think you saw me post a picture of me when I was in kindergarten with a bunch of goofy
Yeah, with the
like,
glasses and
like
the crayon
yeah,
shirt. I
that
remember
kid
that so well.
that kid was not being asked to dance until he
Yeah.
was so I felt that way too, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I like our little circus of dorks or whatever you want to call us. Something
Yeah,
nice to say.
yeah, a little
Whatever.
cluster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like if anybody actually has that, on a guy level, that cool like bro energy, I'm like, they're usually not the ones that stand out to me. It's like
Yeah. And
it's
sometimes they might not portray who they actually are. That could just be like a cover up to who
yeah.
they really are, right? Because they're
That
so afraid to show that delicate side of them, you know.
Oh, I think that's true of most people that put that on.
Yeah.
It's that's like I think like Marlon Brando said, like we all act every day, like
Oh
on
yeah.
some on one level or another. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, yeah. And sometimes like people like me who grew up maybe a little less confident. I don't know if you can like I would
Oh
be
yeah.
different people around different groups. Um,
Absolutely. It's just
even
it's just finding your niche
mhm,
and kind of growing too as a person again by putting yourself out there too, like having open communication and just not being afraid about what other people think. I think that's one of the
yeah.
things that might get in the way too of people wanting to pursue their passion, whether it's acting or what have you, is just being afraid that they're not gonna get to the level that they want to get at, or being afraid that maybe it's too late. Like it's never too late. It's
Oh
never too
yeah.
late to start something. Like I know that's actually going to be another one of my episodes is stop comparing yourself to others later on and on the pod. And I remember reading this. I think it was on Facebook. It was a Facebook post that gave like a list of multiple actors and producers and writers, and their either their first film or their first production at a certain age. And I think Morgan Freeman, I think he was like 46 or something when he
Yeah.
landed his first role. It's like that goes to show, age has no limit to what you can do, and it's never too late to start pursuing what you really want to pursue. So, I
Oh,
just thought that was
totally.
really interesting.
I started again when I was 30. I'm 35 now, and on my 30th or something like that, 30th birthday, I think. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, like, I looked at it like, oh, I wish you started younger. I'm like, I wasn't ready to do it then. I wouldn't have stuck with it. So, and I see people who started in their 60s and they're booking stuff in their 70s
Oh yeah.
and crushing. So,
Absolutely.
like, real literally, there's no limit because a film shows life, and we have people of all ages.
Can just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Brian, thank you. Thank you so much again for taking the time to talk to me. This was a very, very helpful podcast, very helpful podcast, very helpful episode. And I'm glad that we got to learn not only a little bit more about you, but your take on the entertainment industry and tips and tricks that you have for people that want to get started. Is there a way that people can follow you on social? Is that chill for me to plug your
Yeah, sure.
social?
It's pretty much just Instagram at Brian,
Instagram.
yeah, at Brian McDonald Real.
All right, guys, make sure to follow Brian at Brian McDonald Real. No J. No
No
J.
J. No J, but you could search Brian J. McDonald and find me that way.
And then find he's on Google, you guys. If you Google
Yeah.
Brian, he
Yeah.
is on the Google web search.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, Brian, is there anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was good. It was an interesting night to do this because I won't mention the thing, but I
Hmm.
made it all
Don't
the way to
mention the
the
thing.
yeah, I made it all the way to the callback round of something and found out today I didn't get it, and I was really in my feelings. But this was nice just to talk with a friend about acting and
Yeah, for
kind
sure.
of talk through it by talking through the whole thing. So it was great. Keep your heads up, everybody, and follow your passion.
Absolutely. Keep your heads up. Rejection is hard. It will
Yeah,
always be, but just know that when one door closes, another one opens, and an even better one. You
yeah,
never know.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
it is what it is. All right. Well, that's it for today's episode, you guys. As Brian mentioned, you can follow him on Instagram at real. Oh my gosh, I already forgot the handle. I have memory problems. At real Brian.
backwards.
At
At Brian
at
McDonald Real.
Brian McDonald Reel. Yes, I apologize. At
It's
Brian
fine.
McDonald Reel. And you can follow him there. Hope to see you guys on the next episode. But in the meantime, make sure to follow Risen if you don't already. And I will see you guys then. Thank you guys. Bye, Brian. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Take care.